Alien Mistress casually paid with a human slave, only to fall in love and set him free. The intergalactic bazaar of Nexus Prime was a sensory overload of exotic sights, sounds, and smells that would overwhelm most sentient beings. Merchants from 1,000 worlds hawked their wares beneath a sprawling dome that protected the marketplace from the harsh atmosphere of the asteroid belt it called home. Holographic advertisements flickered in dozens of languages, promising everything from eternal youth to instant death. Through this chaos strode Valora Nyx, her deep crimson skin a stark contrast to the silvery white hair that cascaded over her shoulders like liquid moonlight. Her steps were purposeful, her bearing regal, and the crowd parted before her without conscious thought. As the owner of the most exclusive spa resort in the Orion Arm, she was accustomed to deference. "Madam Nyx, what an unexpected pleasure." The voice was oily and obsequious, belonging to a pale green alien with an elongated, hairless head. Drell Voss, a merchant whose reputation for duplicity was matched only by his talent for acquiring rare commodities. Valora's amber eyes narrowed. "Save the pleasantries, Voss. The Lumerian silk you sold me last cycle was synthetic. My clients expect authenticity when they pay premium rates." "A regrettable misunderstanding." Voss's long fingers fluttered nervously. "Market fluctuations, supply chain disruptions. Spare me your excuses." Valora's voice was cold as interstellar space. "I want a full refund or suitable compensation." Voss's eyes darted around, calculating. A public confrontation with someone of Valora's stature would be disastrous for business. Perhaps I have something that might interest you. A unique acquisition just arrived." "I'm not interested in your trinkets," she said, turning to leave. "Not a trinket, Madam Nyx." Voss's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "A human." That stopped her. Humans were rare in this sector. Their homeworld was protected by interstellar treaties after the Terran-Arcturian War. The capture or trade of humans was strictly prohibited. "Show me," she commanded, curiosity overriding caution. Voss led her through a maze of stalls to a secluded area behind his primary shop. There, in a reinforced metal cage barely large enough to stand in, was a human male. His blonde hair was slicked back from exertion, his muscular torso bare and glistening with sweat. Despite his confinement, his gray-blue eyes held not fear, but defiance. "Take him, Mistress," Voss sneered. "This human male is wild and untamed, but he will make an excellent source of entertainment for your guests." The human's eyes met hers, and Yana Valora felt an unexpected jolt. Not of attraction, though he was undeniably well-formed, but of recognition. There was intelligence in that gaze, and pride, qualities she respected. "How did you acquire him?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. "He was found adrift in a damaged escape pod near the Cygnus border. No identification, no record in the galactic registry." Voss shrugged. "Salvage rights apply. A convenient story, and almost certainly a lie, but it provided plausible deniability." "Does he speak?" she asked. "Several languages, including Standard. He's quite vocal about his situation." Voss chuckled unpleasantly. "Though I've found that a neural suppressor helps manage his more colorful outbursts." Valora approached the cage. "What is your name, human?" The man's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, his eyes burning with barely contained fury. "The suppressor prevents speech unless authorized by his owner," Voss explained. "Remove it," Valora commanded. Voss hesitated. "Madam, I wouldn't advise..." "Now!" With reluctant movements, Voss produced a small device and pressed several controls. The human's body tensed, then relaxed as a faint blue glow at the base of his neck faded. "My name," he said in a voice rough from disuse, "is Emmett Drake, and I am not merchandise." His standard was perfect, with barely a trace of accent. "Interesting." "Yet here you are, Mr. Drake," Valora replied coolly, "in a cage being offered as compensation for fraudulent goods." "A temporary situation," Emmett said with surprising confidence. "One that will end badly for anyone involved in my acquisition." Voss shifted nervously. "The human has delusions of importance. Claims to be some kind of military officer, though we found no evidence. I'll take him, Valora interrupted. Both Voss and the human looked surprised. Excellent choice, Madam Nix, Voss recovered quickly. I'll have him delivered to your establishment immediately, along with the control codes for his suppressor. No, Valora said. I'll take him now, and I won't be needing the suppressor. But madam, without it, he's quite… I can handle one human, Voss. Her tone made it clear the discussion was over. As Voss reluctantly opened the cage, Emmett stepped out, stretching his cramped muscles. He stood taller than Valora by a full head, his physique impressive even by human standards. If you attempt to escape, Valora told him quietly, I will be forced to use methods far less pleasant than Voss's crude device. Do we understand each other? Emmett's eyes assessed her, measuring the threat. Perfectly, he finally said. Good, follow me. As they walked through the bazaar, Valora was acutely aware of the stares they attracted. A high-status Nyrillian female with an uncollared human male was unusual enough to draw attention. Your establishment? Emmett asked as they approached her private shuttle. The Celestial Oasis, she replied, the most exclusive spa and resort in the sector. And what will be my role in this oasis? That depends entirely on you, Mr. Drake. The journey to the Celestial Oasis was conducted in silence. Valora observed her new acquisition from the corner of her eye. He sat with military precision, his gaze fixed on the stars visible through the viewport. His posture revealed nothing, but she sensed he was cataloging everything: the shuttle's capabilities, the route, potential escape vectors. The Celestial Oasis orbited Lumina, a gas giant whose swirling azure clouds provided a spectacular backdrop for the resort. The structure itself was a marvel of organic architecture, flowing lines and crystalline domes that caught and refracted the light from Lumina's distant sun. As they docked, Valora activated the ship's comm. Kel, meet us in the private hangar. I've acquired a new staff member. Kel, her head of security, was waiting as promised, a hulking draconian whose scaled skin gleamed metallic blue under the hangar lights. His expression remained impassive as he took in the human, but his hand rested casually on his sidearm. This is Emmett Drake, Valora said. He'll need quarters in the staff section and appropriate attire. Yes, madam, Kel rumbled. Any special security protocols? Standard monitoring for now. Mr. Drake understands his situation. Emmett's mouth twitched slightly at that, but he said nothing. Follow Kel, Valora instructed him. He'll see to your immediate needs. Tomorrow we'll discuss your duties. As Emmett was led away, Valora watched his retreating form. There was something about him, something beyond the obvious physical appeal, that intrigued her, a puzzle to be solved. And Valora had always enjoyed puzzles. The next morning, Valora summoned Emmett to her private office. He arrived precisely on time, dressed in the simple gray tunic and trousers provided to all staff. The clothing did little to diminish his presence. Did you rest well, Mr. Drake? She asked, gesturing for him to sit. As well as can be expected for a prisoner, he replied, remaining standing. You are not a prisoner. You are an employee. Employees are paid. Employees can quit. Valora smiled thinly. Semantics. Your situation is what it is. How comfortable that situation becomes depends largely on your cooperation. What exactly do you want from me? A fair question. Valora considered her answer carefully. Initially, I acquired you as a matter of principle. Voss cheated me, and I required compensation. But now that you're here, I find myself curious. About humans. Your species is something of an enigma in this sector. Technologically inferior to many races, yet you've managed to secure protections that most species spent millennia trying to achieve. You're physically unexceptional, with no natural defenses or abilities, yet you've survived encounters with predatory species that should have eradicated you. Emmett's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Perhaps we're just lucky. I don't believe in luck, Mr. Drake. I believe in patterns, in cause and effect. There's something about humans that doesn't fit the pattern. And you think I can explain this mystery? Perhaps, or perhaps you'll simply provide an interesting case study. She leaned forward. For now, I have a position that needs filling. My clients expect certain experiences during their stay. Novelty is highly valued. Emmett's jaw tightened. I won't be a plaything for your clients. I'm not suggesting prostitution, Mr. Drake, Valora said dryly. The Celestial Oasis offers many forms of pleasure, but that particular service isn't among them. No, I had something else in mind. She activated a holographic display showing a lush garden area within the resort. This is the Terran Sanctuary, designed to replicate environments from Earth. It's popular with species who find your world's aesthetics pleasing. However, it lacks authenticity. You will serve as a guide in explaining Earth's natural features and cultural context. Emmett looked skeptical. A tour guide? Essentially, yes. You'll also assist it with our Earth-inspired treatments and experiences. Your knowledge of human customs and preferences will be valuable. And if I refuse? Valora's expression hardened. Then you'll find your accommodations considerably less comfortable and your duties considerably less pleasant. The waste recycling system always needs maintenance. For a long moment, they stared at each other, neither willing to yield. Finally, Emmett spoke. I'll cooperate. For now. A wise decision. Valora stood. Kel will show you the sanctuary and explain your duties in detail. You begin tomorrow. As Emmett turned to leave, Valora added, One more thing, Mr. Drake. Don't mistake my civility for weakness. Any attempt to escape or cause trouble will be met with immediate and severe consequences. Is that clear? Emmett's smile didn't reach his eyes. Crystal clear, Madam Nix. After he left, Valora remained at her desk, troubled by their interaction. There was something about Emmett Drake that didn't align with what she knew of humans, a confidence that bordered on arrogance, despite his precarious situation. She activated her secure terminal and began a deeper search on human military structures and protocols. If Drake was indeed a military officer, as he claimed, perhaps that would explain his unusual demeanor. What she found only deepened the mystery. The human military was divided into multiple branches, each with its own command structure and specialties. None of her searches returned any record of an Emmett Drake in positions of significance. Either he was lying about his importance, or his identity had been deliberately obscured. Both possibilities were concerning. Over the next few days, Valora observed Emmett from a distance as he settled into his role. Despite his initial resistance, he performed his duties with surprising competence. Clients responded positively to his knowledge of Earth environments and customs, and his natural charisma made him popular among the resort's guests. Too popular, perhaps. Valora noticed several high-ranking clients showing particular interest in the human, interest that went beyond curiosity about his homeworld. The Arcturian ambassador has requested private time with the human, Kel reported during their evening security briefing, for the third time. Valora frowned. Denied. Mr. Drake's duties don't include private sessions. Kel's scaled brow ridge lifted slightly. The ambassador is offering substantial compensation. I don't care if he's offering the entire Arcturian treasury. The answer's no. Later that night, unable to sleep, Valora found herself drawn to the security feeds. She told herself she was simply monitoring a valuable asset, but the truth was more complex. There was something about Emmett Drake that demanded her attention. The feed showed him in his quarters, sitting cross-legged on the floor in what appeared to be meditation. His eyes were closed, his breathing slow and controlled. For nearly an hour, he remained motionless. Then suddenly his eyes opened, looking directly at the camera. As if he knew she was watching, a chill ran down Valora's spine. Impossible. The surveillance system was undetectable to human senses. Yet the knowing look in his eyes suggested otherwise. Impulsively, she made her way to the staff quarters, dismissing the night guards with a gesture. She stood outside Emmett's door for a moment, questioning her own judgment, then pressed her palm to the scanner. The door slid open to reveal Emmett standing in the center of the room, as if he'd been expecting her. Madam Nix, he said, his voice neutral, to what do I owe this late visit? How did you know about the surveillance? She asked without preamble. A slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. I didn't, not for certain, but it was a reasonable assumption. You were looking directly at the camera. I was looking at a section of wall that showed subtle differences in temperature and composition. A guess? But an educated one. Valora studied him with new interest. You're more observant than most humans. Or perhaps you underestimate humans in general. She moved further into the room, the door closing behind her. Perhaps. It wouldn't be the first time a species has been underestimated to their advantage. Emmett said nothing, watching her with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. Who are you really, Emmett Drake? She asked. And don't insult my intelligence with more lies about being an ordinary military officer. For a long moment, he seemed to consider his options. Then he sighed. Sit down, Madam Nix. This may take a while. Valora's amber eyes fixed on Emmett as she settled into the single chair in his quarters. The stark utilitarian room felt suddenly smaller with her presence, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. I'm listening, she said, her silvery hair catching the low light as she tilted her head. Emmett paced briefly before leaning against the wall opposite her. I work for Terran Intelligence Division, a TID. We're a covert agency that operates beyond the official boundaries of Earth's diplomatic corps. A spy? Valora's tone was flat, but her eyes narrowed with new interest. Intelligence officer, he corrected with a hint of a smile. I was on an undercover operation tracking an interspecies trafficking network when my cover was compromised. The escape pod story wasn't entirely fabrication. I was forced to abandon my vessel after sabotage. And Voss? A mid-level operative in the network, not the mastermind, but connected enough to be valuable. Emmett's jaw tightened. He recognized me, or at least suspected what I was. The neural suppressor was to prevent me from communicating with my handlers. Valora leaned forward, her crimson skin seeming to darken with intensity. Why tell me this? If I'm involved with these traffickers, you've just compromised yourself further. You're not involved. His certainty was striking. At least not knowingly. I've had 3 days to observe your operation. The Celestial Oasis is legitimate. Expensive, exclusive, but legitimate. You've been investigating me, she stated, a dangerous edge to her voice. I've been assessing my situation, he countered. Standard protocol when captured. And what is standard protocol after assessment? Emmett's gray-blue eyes met hers directly. Escape if possible, recruit allies if necessary. The implication hung in the air between them. You believe I could be an ally? Valora laughed, the sound both melodic and sharp. What possible reason would I have to help you? Because the trafficking network is expanding into new territory, specifically the luxury service industry. Establishments like yours, that caught her attention. Explain. They're using high-end resorts and spas as fronts for their operation, places that cater to wealthy, powerful clients who might have specialized tastes. His expression darkened. They infiltrate legitimate businesses, gradually corrupting them from within. Eventually, the original owner either becomes complicit or is removed. You're suggesting I'm a target. I'm certain of it. Your acquisition of me wasn't coincidental. Voss was testing you, seeing if you'd be receptive to expanding your services in certain directions. Valora stood abruptly, moving to the small viewbar that showed luminous, swirling clouds. This is absurd. I've built this celestial oasis from nothing. No one infiltrates my organization without my knowledge. Are you absolutely certain of that? Emmett asked quietly. No unexplained staff changes? No unusual client requests that seem just at the edge of your comfort zone? Her silence was answer enough. The Arcturian ambassador, she finally said, his request regarding you. Classic testing behavior. See if you're willing to bend your stated policies for the right price or client. Valora turned back to him, her expression guarded. Even if what you say is true, helping you would put everything I've built at risk. Not helping me will guarantee its destruction, Emmett countered. These people don't leave witnesses or loose ends. Once they determine you're not a viable partner, you become a liability. A tense silence filled the room as Valora processed his words. Emmett remained still, giving her space to think, though his eyes never left her face. What would this alliance entail? She finally asked. I need access to your communications systems to contact my handlers. Freedom to move about the resort? And your help identifying potential network operatives among your staff or clients? Substantial risk for me, with no guarantee of success? Emmett pushed away from the wall, closing some of the distance between them. The alternative is waiting for them to make their move. Trust me, Valora, you don't want that. It was the first time he'd used her given name rather than her title. The familiarity should have offended her, but instead it created an unexpected intimacy in the small room. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" she asked, her voice softer than intended. "This could all be an elaborate escape plan." "If escape was my only objective, I'd have been gone the first night." His gaze was unwavering. "Your security is good, but I've dealt with better." The confidence in his statement wasn't bravado, it was simple fact. Valora found herself believing him against her better judgment. "I need time to consider this," she said. "But we don't have much time," Emmett warned. "But I understand. Just don't take too long." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her at the door. "Valora." The sound of her name in his deep voice sent an unexpected shiver through her. "Thank you for removing the neural suppressor. That meant something." She nodded once, not trusting herself to speak, and left. Back in her private quarters, Valora poured herself a glass of Centaurian brandy and tried to make sense of the night's revelations. If Emmett was telling the truth, her entire operation was at risk. If he was lying, the risk might be even greater. She accessed her secure terminal and began reviewing personnel files, looking for patterns she might have missed. New hires, unusual recommendations, staff with access to sensitive areas or information. 3 hours later, she sat back, troubled. There was nothing obvious, but subtle anomalies had emerged. 4 staff members hired within the past 6 months had references that, while impeccable on the surface, traced back to the same sector, one known for its lax documentation requirements. And the new head of client relations, Tareen Mox, had been unusually accommodating of certain high-profile clients' more extreme requests. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to make her uneasy. Her private comm chimed, a message from Kel reporting that the Arcturian ambassador had once again requested Emmett's company, this time offering triple his previous bid. Valora's finger hovered over the response button. This could be an opportunity to test Emmett's theory. If she accepted the ambassador's offer, how would he react? Would it reveal something about his true intentions? But the thought of sending Emmett to the ambassador left her with an unexpected knot of something in her stomach. Concern for an asset, she told herself. Nothing more. She declined the request and shut down the terminal. Sleep eluded her that night. Her thoughts kept returning to the human, his confidence, his directness, the intensity in his eyes when he spoke. Humans were supposed to be physically unexceptional, yet there was something undeniably compelling about Emmett Drake. Professional interest, she assured herself. A potential ally in a dangerous situation, nothing more. Morning brought no greater clarity, but it did bring a decision. She would test Emmett's claims, cautiously. If he was telling the truth, the alliance could protect her interests. If he was lying, well, she hadn't built her empire by being trusting. She summoned him to her office, ensuring the room was swept for surveillance devices beforehand. "I've considered your proposal," she said when he arrived, not bothering with pleasantries. "I'm willing to provide limited assistance while I verify your claims." Relief flashed briefly across his face before his expression returned to its usual controlled neutrality. "Thank you. What are the parameters?" "You'll have restricted access to our communications array. Enough to send a message to your handlers, but not enough to compromise our security. You'll remain under observation, but with greater freedom of movement within the resort, and you'll share any information you discover about potential infiltrators." "Agreed," he said without hesitation. "When can I access the communications?" "Tonight, during the staff rotation, when fewer eyes are watching." She studied him carefully. "The Arcturian ambassador has made repeated requests for your company. Would engaging with him provide useful intelligence?" Something darkened in Emmett's eyes. "Possibly, but it would be high risk. Arcturians are telepathically sensitive. If he suspects I'm probing for information, the consequences would be unpleasant. Then we'll continue to decline his requests." The decision came more quickly than she intended. Emmett raised an eyebrow slightly but didn't comment on her apparent concern for his welfare. "There's something else you should know," Valora continued. "I've identified several staff members with questionable backgrounds. New hires within the last 6 months?" Names? She provided them, along with their positions and access levels. Emmett committed them to memory with evident ease. "This is helpful," he said, "but we need to be careful how we proceed. If they suspect we're onto them, they'll accelerate their timeline. What do you suggest? Business as usual for now. I'll observe them during my duties, see if I can identify patterns or communications. Once I contact my handlers, we'll have additional resources." Valora nodded, then hesitated before asking her next question. "These traffickers, what exactly do they deal in?" Emmett's expression grew grim. "Whatever the market demands. Rare species, exotic specimens, beings with unique abilities or attributes." He met her gaze directly. "Humans are particularly valuable due to our protected status. The rarity creates demand among collectors, and those with specialized interests." The implication turned her stomach. "And they believe I would participate in this?" "They believe everyone has a price," he said simply. "They just need to find yours." The conversation shifted to logistics, how Emmett would access the communications array, what code phrases would indicate danger, contingency plans if things went wrong. Throughout the discussion, Valora found herself increasingly aware of him as more than just an asset or potential ally. The way he moved with controlled precision, the intelligence behind his tactical suggestions, the occasional flash of dry humor, it all combined to create an unexpectedly appealing whole. When their planning concluded, Emmett rose to leave, but paused at the door. "Thank you for trusting me, Valora. I know it doesn't come easily." "I haven't decided if I trust you yet," she replied honestly, "but I'm willing to bet on mutual interest for now." His smile was brief but genuine. "Fair enough." After he left, Valora remained at her desk, troubled by her own reactions. She had worked with many species throughout her career, some objectively more physically impressive or intellectually advanced than humans. Yet none had affected her quite like this particular specimen. Perhaps it was the danger, she reasoned. High-stress situations often created false intimacy. Or perhaps it was simply curiosity about a species she had limited experience with. Whatever the cause, she would need to maintain professional distance. The situation was complicated enough without adding unnecessary complications. That evening, as planned, Valora personally escorted Emmett to the communications center during the shift change. The few staff present were ones she trusted implicitly, or at least had trusted until Emmett's revelations cast doubt on everyone. "You'll have 15 minutes, she told him as she authorized his access to a secure terminal. "The signal will be routed through multiple proxies to mask its origin." Emmett nodded, already focused on the terminal. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency across the unfamiliar interface, adapting quickly to its alien configuration. Valora watched, impressed despite herself. Most humans struggled with Neurillian technology, finding its organic digital hybrid interface counterintuitive. Emmett navigated it as if he'd been using it for years. "You've worked with our systems before," she observed. "Similar one," he replied without looking up. "Neurillian tech is based on the same principles as Arcturian, just more elegantly executed." The compliment to her species' engineering was unexpected. "You know a great deal about interstellar technologies for a human. Part of the job," his fingers continued their dance across the interface, "understanding other species' capabilities helps assess threats and opportunities." "And which are we?" Threat or opportunity? That made him pause and look up. "Neither, both. It depends on the context." His eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary. On an individual level, the categories become less relevant. Before she could respond to that ambiguous statement, he returned his attention to the terminal. "Message sent, now we wait." "How long?" "If my handler is available, minutes. If not, could be hours or days." As if on cue, the terminal chimed softly. Emmett's eyebrows rose in surprise. That was fast. He opened the incoming transmission, his expression growing increasingly serious as he read. When he finished, he sat back. running a hand through his blonde hair in a gesture that seemed uncharacteristically unguarded. "Bad news?" Valora asked. "Complicated news." He glanced around the communications center. "Not here." "Oh, she led him to a private conference room adjacent to the center, securing the door behind them." "My handler confirms your resort has been targeted," Emmett said without preamble. "But it's worse than I thought. The operation isn't just about infiltrating your business. It's about acquiring you." "Me?" Valora's hand went instinctively to the ceremonial dagger at her hip. "Why?" "Nyrillians with your particular genetic markers are extremely rare. Your coloration, your abilities, they make you valuable to certain collectors." Valora felt cold despite the room's comfortable temperature. How would they know about my genetic markers? That's the concerning part. They have access to genetic databases that should be secure, including the one from your last medical certification. The implications were staggering. If they had access to secure medical databases, their reach extended into regulatory agencies, possibly even governmental structures. "Who are these people?" she demanded. "They call themselves the Consortium, multi-species, highly organized, with connections throughout the sector." Emmett's expression was grim. "My agency has been tracking them for years, but they're elusive. Every time we get close, key witnesses disappear or evidence is corrupted. And now I'm on their acquisition list." Valora paced the small room, mind racing. "Along with you, presumably." "I was already on their list. My capture was intentional. They just didn't expect me to end up here with you." Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. "What aren't you telling me?" Emmett hesitated and then seemed to come to a decision. "My mission wasn't just to gather intelligence on the consortium. It was to make contact with a high-value potential ally, someone whose cooperation could help dismantle their entire operation." Understanding dawned. "Me? You were sent to recruit me. Not specifically you. We had intelligence that the consortium was targeting a high-ranking Nyrillian in the luxury service industry. We didn't have a name or location, so our meeting wasn't entirely coincidental. The specific circumstances were unexpected, but the general trajectory was anticipated." Valora wasn't sure whether to be angry at the manipulation or impressed by the strategy. "And now we have an opportunity. My handler is arranging extraction for both of us, but it will take time to do safely. In the meantime, we need to identify the consortium agents in your organization and gather evidence of their operation." "Both of us?" Valora's eyes narrowed. "I haven't agreed to leave my business. If you stay, you'll either be taken or killed," Emmett said bluntly. "The consortium doesn't leave loose ends." The reality of her situation was beginning to sink in. Everything she had built, everything she had achieved, was now at risk because of who she was, something she couldn't change. "How long do we have?" 3 days, maybe 4 before extraction. Less if the consortium realizes I've made contact with my handlers. 3 days to save what could be saved, to decide what and who to trust. Valora studied the human before her. This unexpected ally thrust into her life by forces beyond either of their control. There was something compelling about him beyond his physical form or his evident intelligence, a quality that made her want to trust him despite all her instincts for self-preservation. 3 days, she repeated. "Then we'll reassess." Emmett nodded, accepting her conditional cooperation. "We should return separately, maintain normal routines as much as possible." As they prepared to leave, Valora found herself reluctant to end their conversation. "Emmett," she said, using his given name for the first time, "if you were sent to recruit someone like me, what would have been your approach under normal circumstances?" A hint of a smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Under normal circumstances? I'd have booked a stay at your resort as a client, arranged to meet you socially, established a connection based on mutual interests before ever mentioning the consortium." "A more pleasant first meeting than a cage," she observed dryly. "Considerably." His eyes met hers, and for a moment, the professional distance between them seemed to evaporate. Though the outcome might have been the same, the implication hung in the air between them. charged with possibilities neither of them could afford to explore under the circumstances. "Good night, Mr. Drake," Valora said, deliberately reinstating formality. "Good night, Madam Nix," he replied, but the slight curve of his lips suggested he saw through her attempt at distance. As she watched him leave, Valora acknowledged a troubling truth. In the midst of danger and uncertainty, she was developing feelings for this human that went far beyond professional alliance or even physical attraction. And that might prove the most dangerous element of all in the days to come. The morning after their clandestine meeting, Valora awoke to a resort-wide security alert. Someone had attempted to breach the communications array during the night shift, precisely when she and Emmett had used it. "Report!" she demanded, striding into the security center where Kel was reviewing footage. "External origin, but they knew our protocols," the Draconian rumbled. Whatever they were looking for, they wanted it badly. Valora maintained her composed exterior while her mind raced. The consortium had detected Emmett's transmission faster than anticipated. Their timeline had just accelerated dramatically. "Increase security throughout the resort," she ordered. "Full identity verification for all staff and guests." As Kel turned to comply, Taryn Mox, one of the staff members Emmett had flagged as suspicious, entered the security center. "Madam Nix," Taryn said smoothly, "the Arcturian ambassador is most displeased with the security measures. He's threatening to depart and take his considerable entourage with him." "Security protocols apply to everyone during an alert," Valora replied coolly. "Of course, but perhaps a personal assurance from you would smooth things over? He specifically mentioned wanting to discuss the human you acquired recently." The pieces clicked into place with chilling clarity. The ambassador's persistent interest in Emmett, the communications breach, Taryn's convenient appearance. "Tell the ambassador I'll meet with him shortly," she said, keeping her voice steady. After Taryn departed, Valora headed to her private quarters. If her suspicions were correct, Emmett would have gone to ground in the one place no one would think to look for him, the chambers of the woman who owned him. Her intuition proved correct. As the door to her quarters slid shut behind her, Emmett emerged from her private study, tension evident in every line of his body. "They moved faster than expected," he said without preamble. "My handler sent an emergency signal. Our communications were detected. I know the Arcturian ambassador is asking for you specifically." "He's consortium," Emmett confirmed grimly. "High-ranking, based on my handler's intelligence. The attempted breach was likely his people trying to confirm my identity." "And Taryn Mox?" "Almost certainly their plant within your organization. Probably the one who flagged you as a potential acquisition." Valora paced the room, mind working through scenarios. "How much time do we have?" "Hours, not days. Once they confirm who I am, they'll move to secure both of us." His eyes met hers. "The extraction team can't get here before tomorrow at the earliest. Then we need to expose them first," she decided. "On our terms." Emmett raised an eyebrow. "That's risky." "Less risky than waiting for them to come for us. I know this resort better than anyone." She turned to her secure terminal. "I'm going to meet with the ambassador as requested." "That's too dangerous," Emmett objected, moving closer. "He's telepathically sensitive. If he suspects you know..." "He'll be looking for fear, deception," Valora countered. "Not aggression. Besides, Narillians have natural resistance to Arcturian telepathy." Emmett still looked unconvinced. "What's your plan?" "I'll keep him occupied while you access his quarters. My security codes will get you in. Find evidence linking him to the consortium, anything we can use to expose him publicly. And if I'm caught, then I'll have to save you," she said with a hint of a smile. His answering smile sent an unexpected warmth through her. "I seem to recall saving you as part of my cover story. Perhaps we'll get the chance to make that fiction into reality." The words came out more flirtatious than intended, and she saw his eyes darken in response. "I look forward to it," he said softly. For a moment, they stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. The danger surrounding them seemed to intensify every sensation, every awareness of him as both ally and man. With effort, she stepped back. "Take this," she said, removing a small device from her wrist. "It's keyed to my biometrics, but I can authorize temporary access. It will get you into any secured area of the resort." Their fingers brushed as she handed it to him, and the brief contact sent a jolt of electricity up her arm. From his sharp intake of breath, he felt it too. "Be careful," he said, his voice rougher than before. "You too." The Arcturian ambassador awaited her in his private lounge, his tall, willowy form draped elegantly across a contoured recliner. Like all his species, Ambassador Thrall possessed an otherworldly beauty, iridescent skin that shifted colors with his moods and eyes like liquid silver. "Madam Nix," he greeted her, "how kind of you to make time for me during this unfortunate security situation." "The safety of all our guests is my priority, Ambassador," she replied smoothly. "Speaking of treasures," Thrall gestured for her to sit opposite him, "I remain most interested in your recent acquisition, the human male." "Mr. Drake has become quite popular among our guests," she acknowledged. "His knowledge of Earth environments has enhanced our Terran sanctuary experience." "I'm sure his knowledge is impressive," Thrall said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But I wonder if his talents might be better appreciated in more intimate settings." "The Celestial Oasis doesn't offer the kind of services you're suggesting, Ambassador." "Everyone has their price, Madam Nix." Thrall leaned forward, his skin shifting to a deeper purple. "For some, it's wealth. For others, power or protection. What's yours, I wonder?" "My reputation for integrity is beyond price," she replied coolly. "Integrity? How quaint." His eyes narrowed slightly. "But perhaps unnecessary in the changing landscape of our sector. There are powerful entities who could ensure your continued success, regardless of reputation." "Are you speaking of the consortium, Ambassador?" Valora asked directly, watching his reaction. The momentary widening of his eyes confirmed her suspicions before he recovered his composure. "I'm not familiar with that organization," he lied smoothly. "You seem well informed about my genetics, Ambassador. More so than I would expect from diplomatic briefings." Thrall smiled, revealing teeth too sharp for comfort. "I make it my business to know valuable things, and people. And what value do you place on me, I wonder?" "Incalculable," he said, his voice dropping to a silky purr. "But I'm authorized to offer you a choice. Join our organization willingly, bringing your expertise and connections, or be acquired as an asset." Valora allowed her expression to show interest rather than the revulsion she felt. "An intriguing proposition. What would this willing partnership entail?" "You would continue to operate the Celestial Oasis, with some modifications to your client offerings. Certain guests would have access to exclusive experiences, involving rare specimens like your human, and others we would provide. And my role beyond the resort? Your genetic material would be harvested regularly for our collectors, painlessly, of course, and you would occasionally be required to attend private gatherings where your unique attributes would be appreciated." The clinical way he described what amounted to biological exploitation made her skin crawl, but she forced herself to appear contemplative. "I'll need time to consider such a significant change to my business model." Thrall's expression hardened slightly. "I'm afraid time is a luxury we don't have. Recent events have accelerated our timeline. I'll need your answer before I depart tomorrow." As she left the diplomatic wing, Valora's composure nearly cracked. The ambassador's threats had been explicit, his intentions for both her and Emmett horrifying in their casual cruelty. She headed toward the ambassador's private quarters, taking a circuitous route to avoid surveillance. As she rounded the corner near the service quarters, a hand shot out from an alcove and pulled her into the shadows. Before she could react, she recognized Emmett's scent, the solid warmth of his body as he pressed her against the wall, one hand covering her mouth in a signal for silence. He removed his hand once she nodded understanding, but remained close, necessary in the small space, but distracting nonetheless. "The ambassador's quarters were a gold mine," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "Encrypted communications, transfer records, even a list of targets. You're at the top." "He just confirmed it all to my face," she whispered back. "They're moving tomorrow. The extraction team won't make it in time." Emmett's expression darkened. "We need to move first. Tonight." "How?" "The resort is crawling with security, mine and theirs. I have an idea, but it's risky." His eyes met hers in the dim light. "Do you trust me?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications beyond their current danger. Yes, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I trust you. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, gratitude, and something deeper that made her pulse quicken. Then we need to get to your private shuttle, he said. But first, we need a distraction. They formulated their plan in hushed voices, bodies close in the narrow alcove. Each brush of his arm against hers, each moment their eyes met, added to the tension building between them. Once we're on the shuttle, Emmett concluded, we can rendezvous with my extraction team at the coordinates they provided. And leave everything I've built? Valora's voice held a note of pain despite her resolve. Emmett's hand found hers in the shadows, his touch unexpectedly gentle. Not forever. Once we bring down the consortium, you can return. Rebuild. If we bring them down, she corrected, they are, but so is my agency. His fingers tightened around hers. And we have something they don't. What's that? His smile was fierce in the dim light. The element of surprise. And each other. The simple declaration shouldn't have affected her so strongly, but it did. In the midst of danger and uncertainty, this human had become her ally, her partner, perhaps something more. We move at midnight, she decided, during the atmospheric show. Perfect. He started to move away, but she caught his arm. Admit, his name felt right on her lips. If something goes wrong, he didn't let her finish, closing the distance between them with a swiftness that took her breath away. His lips found hers in the darkness. The kiss both question and answer, a promise and a possibility. When they parted, both slightly breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Nothing will go wrong, he murmured, but if it does, we'll face it together. Their plan unraveled when Kell urgently reported that Emmett had been taken by the ambassador's security team, claiming diplomatic authority and producing seemingly legitimate documentation of espionage charges. Where have they taken him? She demanded. The ambassador's private shuttle. They're preparing for immediate departure, which meant they intended to leave with both their targets. They just hadn't come for her yet. After explaining everything to Kell, the loyal Draconian immediately offered his help. Together, they created a distraction in the main resort, while Valora slipped through service corridors toward the diplomatic docking bay. The ambassador's shuttle gleamed under the bay lights, with 2 guards at the entry ramp. Valora approached with authority, demanding a status report as if conducting a routine inspection. When the guards refused entry, the lights in the bay flickered and died. Kell's work, right on schedule. Valora moved instantly, disabling both guards before racing up the ramp. She found Emmett in a force-caged section of the cargo hold, bruised but conscious. His eyes widened when he saw her. You shouldn't be here, he said urgently. It's a trap. I know, came Ambassador Threll's melodic voice from behind her. But knowing doesn't seem to have made her any wiser. What followed was a desperate struggle, with Valora keeping the ambassador distracted while Emmett worked to deactivate the force cage. When he finally succeeded, they managed to subdue Threll and make their escape. With Kell's help, they reached Valora's private shuttle just as lockdown protocols threatened to trap them. The Draconian held back a descending security barrier, buying them precious seconds to board. Go! Kell shouted. I'll handle things here. Moments later, they were sealed inside, the shuttle systems responding to Valora's voice commands as they lifted away from the celestial oasis. We made it, Emmett said softly, his gray-blue eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the viewport. We left everything behind, she replied, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. Not everything. His fingers tightened around hers. And not forever. As the shuttle cleared Lumina's atmosphere and entered open space, Valora allowed herself to truly look at the human beside her. No longer property, no longer even an ally of convenience, but something she had never expected to find. What happens now? She asked. Now we meet my team, provide them with everything we know about the consortium, and help them dismantle the entire operation. His expression softened. And then, whatever we want to happen, the promise in those words, the possibilities they represented, made her heart race in a way danger never had. I was supposed to be your mistress, she said with a hint of irony. And now we're both free, he finished, to choose our own path. She leaned forward, claiming his lips with her own. Unlike their hurried kiss in the alcove, this one was unhurried, exploratory, a beginning rather than a desperate moment stolen from chaos. When they finally parted, breathless and flushed, Emmett traced the curve of her crimson cheek with gentle fingers. "I've been wanting to do that properly since the moment you walked into my office that first night," he admitted. "Even though I owned you?" she asked, genuinely curious. "You never owned me," he corrected softly. "You saved me. There's a difference." The distinction mattered, she realized. What had begun as a transaction, a human male casually acquired as compensation, had transformed into something neither of them could have anticipated. As the extraction vessel appeared on their sensors, Valora felt a strange sense of peace despite the uncertainty ahead. She had lost her business, her home, her carefully constructed life, yet gained something she hadn't known she was missing: freedom, true freedom, not just from the consortium's threats, but from the isolation of her previous existence. "I accept your offer, Mr. Drake," she said formally, then broke into a genuine smile. "Emmett." His answering smile was all the confirmation she needed that whatever path they chose to follow, they would walk it together. No longer mistress and slave, but equals in every way that mattered.